going on, guys? So today we're talking about how to beat Melodious. This video was actually brought to you by this comment. So if you have any decks that you want me to talk about, from Snake Eyes to Cloudian to Exodia Trap to Exodia Treasure Panda to the new Exodia that's coming out, any Exodia deck and any other Yu-Gi-Oh deck as well, let me know in those comments down below. I will be happy to get to them. This is actually one of two decks that person talked about that I think are actually both super relevant because they're both super meta. Melodious has always been a very interesting rogue deck in the sense of, like, it can always do, it's always been able to do what it does now, if that makes sense, right? This is another deck similar to Ritual Beast, actually, which has actually been around for a while and just got some new support. So that gives us an opportunity to have play tested with the deck, seen it evolve pre-new support, and see it evolve obviously post support. So effectively, Melodious is trying to make three different types of boards. It's okay at going second, but because most of its monsters rely heavily on like protection effects, it does prefer to go first. Like, obviously it's a fusion based deck, so it does prefer to go first. It can go second, excuse me, but it would prefer to go first, right? Just the way the deck is built. It's not like Frifer or even like branded elemental heroes. Even Shadal's would prefer to go second, or at least are really solid going second. This deck is okay going second, but it prefers to go first. And the first really first turn board that it's trying to make is you can't touch anything, right? Like, if you've ever played against Melodious, the first turn board they're trying to make is like, can't be destroyed by card effects, can't be destroyed by battle, can't be targeted, right? All of these different things. They also have a new fusion monster that has the ability to, you know, wind up rabbit to tag out, right? So that can help against Evenly Match. Evenly Match is not good against Melodious. Dark Ruler No More is pretty solid versus that Evenly Match. But because of that dodge effect, there's actually a lot of things that they can do where they go, okay, I'm going to move these cards out of the way, and as long as I survive, I'm fine, right? And because this deck got effectively three different one-card starters, like 1.5 card starters, like one of the Pendulum needs to obviously target a Melodious to get a spell, but that's effectively a one card. It's like 1.5, right? But then their other Pendulum new monster is a one-card starter, right? And their new spell is a one-card starter. So what that also means that, you know, just elephant in the room, like every other Yu-Gi-Oh deck in 2024, at least it feels like, Melodious can run a lot of hand traps. The Nibs, the Drolls, the Bells, the Veilers, the Hiawatas, the Karibos, the Swift Scarecrows, you name it. You know what I mean? They're probably going to run a little bit more meta hand traps than Swift Scarecrow, but you understand the point that I'm trying to make, because the other type of board they're trying to do, or another type of board they're trying to make, is this sort of like bunch of negates, vortex, probably an Apollosa, you know, maybe that tag out effect monster, and a couple of back row and some hand traps, and just say, if my opponent can't play, my opponent can't win, right? And we know that a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh decks try to do that nowadays, to varying levels of success, but Melodious is a very successful deck when it comes to doing that. Now, obviously, the third type, or at least I feel like it's obvious, is a sort of mixture where maybe they'll put up, you know, the one that says when it's special summoned, Melodious can't be destroyed by battle or targeted by card effects, right? Or they'll put up the fusion that tags out, and then they'll put up an Apollosa, right? Or something to that effect. So those are the main three things that Melodious is trying to do. If you can get Melodious, what I call like on their back foot, where they're playing from behind, you can actually put yourself in a really good spot. Melodious has a lot of one-card starters. So realistically, you're going to need at least 3 forms of disruption. And the reason why I say 3 is because if you look at the ratio of their hand, they're probably going to open anywhere from 2 to 3 hand traps. If they open anywhere from 2 to 3 hand traps, that means they have 3 or 4 combo pieces otherwise, right? And obviously, like, Tactics Talent, Called By, but for the most part, it's going to be hand traps, and Melodious cards. So if you can put up like 2 to 3 forms of disruption, or even a floodgate, that's a huge form of disruption, right? Like the Power Sync Stone, I think that's one that's been coming out a lot. Power Stone Sync, what is the one? It gains 2 counters if a monster effect is used, and after resolving the second monster effect, you can't. All monster effects, I think, can't be activated or are negated, something like that. I haven't read the card in a minute. That card's not up here because I feel like a lot of people are signing that card in, and there are a lot of really good cards against Melodious, actually, that you're probably already using. So I try to pick some cards that I felt like maybe have fallen out of favor, or maybe that you have forgotten about, right? And the first card we're going to talk about is actually going to be Necro Valley, right? Now, if you can run G-Shifter, D-Fisher, Macrocosmos, you're probably already doing it, right? Like, there aren't a lot of decks, like Exorcist or Floowandereeze, even like Sprite, Runic, Kashira, that can run D-Shifter and aren't running D-Shifter, because D-Shifter is just so good right now, right? But there are some decks that can't run D-Shifter, and most of those decks can also not run Necro Valley. But if your deck doesn't fall under that category, if it doesn't fall under that situation, Necro Valley is killer. Now, hopefully I get the right text. I think this is the right text, because it's been changed a lot. But all great people about to get 500 attack. Cards cannot be banished, which could be potentially really good. Cards in the graveyard, I should say, but could be good under certain matchups. There are certain decks that like to banish from opponent's graveyard to activate their effect, but negate any effect that would move a card that's in the graveyard to a different place. So that turns off Monster Reborn. That turns off the Flame Bridge Dragon card monster thing. Right, and there are actually a lot of cards that can search Necro Valley, not just Terraforming Metaverse, right? And so Necro Valley is just something to consider. If you can't run the banished stuff, but you can run Necro Valley, I would definitely consider it, right? Another card I want to talk about, Solemn Strike. This is a card I feel like that's kind of fallen out of favor because it's just too slow. Counter traps, you know, how many great counter traps are there in the meta? There's really just like Solemn Judgment, which isn't a bad option either. But the reason I wanted to talk about Solemn Strike, Imperm, we already kind of talked about it a little bit with Evenly Matched. Veiler, Ghost Mourner, Lost Wind, I don't know, whatever, Breakthrough Skill, Fiendish Chain. The Melodious Fusion monster can dodge most of those, right? Now, obviously, if you're striking, you're hopefully striking earlier, right? But the reason why I'm bringing up Solemn Strike when it comes to Melodious, it can't be responded to. Now, they can Judgment it. So when I say it can't be responded to, I mean it's Spell Speed 3. And the only cards that can respond to Spell Speed 3 cards are other Spell Speed 3. And the only cards that are in Spell Speed 3 are Counter Trap cards. So just the effect, because here's the thing, all Melodious monsters need to be special summon to activate their effect, right? And so when your opponent special summons their Melodious monster, they go to activate their effect, you chain Solemn Strike, they're just going to kind of be sitting there with their jaw on the table because they can't respond to that. And in some cases, like I said, you want Melodious on its back foot, and in some cases, you can actually just like hard win through one Solemn Strike. There was a lot of times in testing where I would play against Melodious, I'd stop one part of their play because they're running so many hand traps, the game would just be over, right? So Solemn Strike is definitely something really good. On the note though of summoning, I will say, if you like Book of Moon, a Melodious card, and they flip summon it back up, be very careful to make sure your opponent doesn't just assume that it's been special summoned. And it's not their fault. I don't think your opponent's like maliciously cheating, right? I just think that there's so much going on in a Yu-Gi-Oh duel. It could be very easy to see a Melodious monster flip face up, like the one that says all Melodious monsters gain 500 attack and defense, and just assume they all have 500 attack and defense because it's face up on the field. But you have to remind them, I Book of Eclipse that, I Book of Lunar Eclipse that, I Book of Moon that, right? I flipped that face down. I mean, there's a new Whitewoods cards with a new Whitewood Synchro monster that flips cards face down, right? If you're able to do that, and they flip it back up, it's not special summoned, it's flip summoned, right? So that's just like kind of like a ruling thing against Melodious, just to be on the lookout for. But another card should be pretty obvious is non-fusion area. All these like non-fusion, you know, fusion bad type cards, success probability 0. I think it was the Grave of the Ancient Rulers or something like that, the one that stops level 6 monsters from being special summoned or negates their effects. We talked about it with Ritual Beast actually, that's why I didn't want to bring it up again. It's also pretty good, right? I'm trying to think. I think like Runic and maybe Frightfur are the only decks that like don't rely heavily on high level fusion monsters and are fusion based. Maybe Shadal's, I don't know. I feel like I'm forgetting one or two, but for the most part, all the Melodious monsters are over level 6. So that works really well. Non-fusion barrier works really well, and obviously dimensional barrier. But unfortunately, we are not always in a match. Best 2 out of 3. Melodious wins turn 1. We win turn 2 because we flip up non-fusion area and they scoop, right? What are we siding in going second? Now, Ash is really good because he can't dodge it. Valor, Imperm, Mourner is good, but don't save it because, like I said, they have that tag out ability, right? I mean, you can save it for like an Apollousa that they make. Imperm's really good against Apollousa. But like if you're going like during your turn, I activate Apollousa, or I activate Imperm on Apollousa to stop that Apollousa entirely and make its attack 0. But we should know that interaction right now. But I think actually a really good going second card that has kind of fallen out of the favor of the meta because it does blast your normal summon is actually Sphere Mode. Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode. Literally just got the reprint. It's literally 25 cents. Like I remember this time there was a card that was like 10 bucks. And it'll never be at that point, but with only 4 printings, it actually could be a good buy even if you're not going to run it. But the market of Winged Dragon of Raw Sphere Mode aside, Melodious is almost always putting up 3 or more monsters. And you can just say goodbye to all of them, right? Especially in the mirror match with so many 1-card starters that don't revolve around your normal summon, right? I mean, we know like Snake Eyes kind of has a normal summon. Actually, Plant Link does it though, right? That's another one. Tempai doesn't really need its normal summon, so I mean, Tempai, it's kind of hard to get rid of the Winged Dragon of Raw Sphere Mode for Tempai, but for the most part, Winged Dragon of Raw Sphere Mode or Lava Golem, that's another one. I think Lava Golem might actually even be better because they may be playing around Sphere Mode. They may have gotten Sphere Moded earlier in the tournament, so now they're playing around it, only giving you 2. Very rarely will you see a Melodious deck end on 1 monster. They just can't do it. The deck is, I mean, it used to be actually Melodious would just summon its fusion monster and sit on it and protect it. That's not what the deck does though anymore. So you activate Sphere Mode, you're in a great spot. And I kind of already gave away my last card effect because I just said Melodious has a lot of cards, spell cards, that special summon, right? And those are their 1-card starters. Well, Retaliating Sea hard counters that. And this is a card a lot of people have forgotten about. When your opponent activates a spell card that includes an effect, special summon a monster, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand if summoned this way. While this face-up card is on the field, any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. So it's a Macrocosmos. And something worth noting, Retaliating Sea does have a second effect. And if you've played any insect deck ever, you know this because it searches Resident Insect. But it says, if this card is set for the field to the graveyard, you can add 1 Earth Insect monster with 1500 or less attack, right? But another interesting card is Contact Sea, right? And there's actually a bunch of different sea. It's not just Max Sea. There's actually like Confronting the Sea, Shining, Black Sea. There's a lot. But this card does say when your opponent normal special summons a monster, you can special summon this card from your hand to your opponent's field in defense position. This card's controller can have Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link Summon unless they use this card as material. What's interesting, most of the Melodious monsters need Melodious monsters to Fusion Summon. Like, you give them a Contact Sea, they cannot Fusion Summon, they cannot play. Now, will they probably just make an SP with this and like because they have to summon a monster, right? Or they make an IP or something to that effect, or any Link, a Nightmare Cerebus, I don't know. They make a generic Link 2, right, with Contact Sea to get rid of it, probably, right? But it still puts them in a funky play line, and could potentially help you out a lot, especially considering you can search this off Retaliating Sea. But let me know what you guys think in those comments down below. What are some cards that you think you should be siding against Melodious? Let me know down there. If there are any decks that you want me to talk about, please Don't be afraid to leave a comment down below. Make sure you guys hit that like button, show your support for the channel, subscribe for more content, but most importantly, have a good day.